The Gauteng Department of Education is working closely with schools in high-pressure zones to increase class sizes and accommodate unplaced learners. The department has identified some schools in affected areas which will be provided with mobile classrooms. It also says they'll also partner with independent schools to accommodate excess learners from public schools in consultation with affected parents. Gauteng Department of Education spokesperson Steve Mabona joins me in studio. Good morning, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Paul, and to our viewers.
You've raised very important factors here as you speak about, schools in high-pressure zones. You're going to increase classroom capacity. Is that not concerning on its own, the number of pupils in one class?
But the argument will be whose child should not be at school, because we know that we are in the middle of, an argument between those parents that want to be placed, to say we want school, but those that are at the schools already, I'm talking about the SGBs and the, parents that are already at schools, they will say don't even think about overcrowding us, don't think about increasing the class size, but will still say, but you enjoy the quality of education that we provide, so whose child must now be at home. So our argument is very clear that we work very closely with them. We have negotiated. In some quarters, they have actually acceded to our call to say they need to increase, because we put a suggestion that if we don't increase the class size, then we're going to provide you with mobile classrooms. Some will then be wary of, mobiles, because probably they're not good for their school. And they will say, no, probably we can amend, tweak there and there and make sure that we increase the class size. The argument that it compromises the quality of education, we hear that, but our argument is that each and everyone want to access this quality of education. Be saying those parents that are saying we are placing them in schools that they didn't apply for. Yes, indeed, we are doing that because we have an obligation as a department to place. So we'll give you an alternative school, but then try to stretch, schools and to accommodate more learners and the independent schools that you've already indicated to. We are partnering with them to say, can't you accommodate some of the learners that could not be accommodated in our public ordinary schools, and that is yielding results for us.
Just expand a little bit on these independent schools. I mean, if you really instances, how are you going to maneuver around that?
No, look, that's why we said we will do that in consultation with parents. There are parents that will opt for that, but we also need to take in consideration that some of these independent schools, we actually subsidize them. So we'll be in a position to negotiate. We're not going to go there as, saying they need to admit and we leave it at that. We're going for, a partnership which will be saying, you assist us, because we remember that we fund you one way or the other. So let's work together and make sure that we assist each other. I mean, an area like Naturena, for instance, they don't have a high school there, but they have 2 primary schools. The schools that are close to them is your Sir Adams, your President, and Mondio High. And they are full, to the rafters. So we are working tirelessly to make sure that can't we provide mobile units to those schools so that they can accommodate those parents that will be coming from Naturena. And we think that will be assisting, because if we can't, we will be found wanting, because we need to, oblige to the constitutional requirement.
When you speak of larger classrooms, Steve, what are the numbers that you're looking at here?
No, like for instance, I mean, a school, we will say we can only take 200 learners. And we will say to them, okay, can't you take at least additional 40? Additional 40 learners, then you'll spread those learners in, different classrooms and make sure that at least you still have a class that will still be in a position to be accommodative, and an educator will still, be comfortable to teach. Remember, we consulted, the SGB associations last week. We gave them, an information that will empower them to say if they want to take a decision to take us to task, they need to be informed that what is it that we're talking about. We're not talking about AfriForum and them, those that don't have an interest in our schooling. Those that have an interest in demonizing the MEC, have an interest of personalizing, trying to take Africans and plug it to the MEC. And the MEC is saying all schools belong to all of us. You can't want to say this is an African single medium and no one must touch it. Our argument is very clear. There are those single medium schools, like as we said in our statement, their numbers are very low. So what do? We're going to convert those schools to English medium so that we can then accommodate those English learners that need to be taught in that language. And we'll go to the townships where numbers are low as well. We will then change those to English medium. But there's this, assertion that we are saying we're going to take learners that must do Afrikaans to the township, which is it's ridiculous. It's myth. We didn't say that. We said we're going to convert all those schools that have low numbers, must convert them to English, because there are those parents that will say, my child has been at a former Model C for their entire life. Now you can't want to take to the township. We say, okay, it's fine. We will make sure that the language of teaching is English. Then there's no excuse. I mean, when you look at all of our township schools that we are building now, all parents want to go there. Look at the numbers. They dictate that actually there's a demand for a quality education. And quality education is not only in towns, like as some parents will argue. And that's why we've decided that we're going to grade all our schools so that parents look, is that school good? And if the school uniform is beautiful, then the assumption is that the school is good. We look at the result. We look at grading all those schools.
Steve, we're out of time, but I really want us to touch very briefly on the incidents that happened, a suicide of a learner in one aspect and another who had access to a gun. Talk us through exactly what happened with the suicide of the learner. Really unfortunate news to have, for us to have all heard about. What happened in that incident?
Quite sad indeed, quite sad. We received information that this learner committed suicide respectfully. One on the 14th of November, one on Sunday. Quite sad. I mean, the first incident, they say this learner lost the cell phone. I mean, and one thing to think about taking their own life. That's why I will normally encourage learners to say, seek advice, go to someone that can assist you. There's a child line that you can use, to go call there. I mean, you will have counselors, you will have people that are professionals that can be in a position to assist you. The second incident, this child decided to shoot himself using the father's firearm, which is quite sad, because now the father must also be taken to task and say, how do you keep your firearm safe? Because according to legislation, you must make sure that your firearm is kept very safe. So it's quite sad, but we have sent our psychosocial unit team in both schools to support everyone, the families, learners, educators, everyone that is in the schooling community, so that we understand.
The psychosocial unit that you speak of, who has access to it, Steve? Just very briefly, who has access? Is it not perhaps a unit that should be accessible to students and learners before such horrific incidents occur?
Look, they are everywhere. I mean, in district offices, they are stationed there. We have a team that is at the head office, and we also work very closely with social development. So in the event of anything, they are in a position to work and go and assist there. We also work very closely with some of the NGOs. So if learners have a challenge, they need to just go to staff room, and they will be assisted on how to move forward. But the assistance is always there. That's why we would normally say we've already sent that team, because they are already there making sure that in the event of anything, they go to those schools and make sure that they support them. And this morning we received information that one of our patroller in Hammanskraal was actually stabbed to death while in our school. So we had to send a team this morning to go and support the school and everyone that is involved there, including the family, because we normally extend that assistance to the families as well.
And is this not a unit, very lastly, I mean, we don't have much time, is this not a unit that should not be reactive, rather a preventative one? Because, I mean, the access that you refer to here, going to the staff room instead of having it, there as a preventative measure, instead of being a reactive one, which comes after things have happened. Are you not concerned about that?
No. There are programs. I mean, we have school safety, which they conduct so many of the programs in different schools. I mean, like for instance, the issue of bullying that we are working on now. We took learners to 2 camps already. We will be taking them in other camps. So they are very, responsible and make sure that
unfortunately we run out of time. Thank you so much for your time. There you have it, Gauteng Education Department spokesperson Steve Mabona speaking about 2 very crucial incidences there that occurred across various schools, a suicide and one of a learner who committed suicide, as well as an update on the online placement system.